Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're doing something a little different, almost like a theological speed run.
A speed run, yeah, I like that. We're diving into just 4 short verses that really contain the absolute core of a faith that's been around for 1,400 years.
And these are verses from Surah Al-Ikhlas, chapter 112 of the Quran. It's just the most concise, powerful definition of the divine you could imagine.
It's an incredible piece of text. They call it the sincerity or the purity, and its whole mission is to define this concept of Tawhid.
Right, Islamic monotheism.
Yes. And our mission today is to show you that Tawhid is so much more than just saying God is numerically one. I mean, that's the start, but it's not the whole picture.
No, not at all. Because if someone just says, oh, we believe in one God, that leaves all these gaps, right?
Huge gap.
Like, what is that one God like? Is he bound by time? Does he need things? Does he have equals?
Exactly. And Tawhid answers all of that. It's this assertion of absolute singularity, of transcendence and self-sufficiency. It just systematically breaks down every human limit we might try to put on the Creator.
It's the foundation.
It's the bedrock. Everything else in belief and action rests on it.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to explore what we can call the 4 non-negotiable pillars that are packed into this one short chapter. Each verse builds on the last, and together they form this complete interlocking framework. So we have to start with the first verse. Say, He is Allah, who is one. What I find so interesting is that it kicks off with a command, say. It's not, consider this or here's an idea. It's a proclamation. It's meant for every single believer to recite and to internalize.
That directive, qual, it universalizes the whole concept. It turns this deep theological truth into a daily active commitment.
And the language it uses, Allah.
Right. And that's critical. The name Allah is the personal, proper name of God in Arabic. It's not just a generic word like deity. It signifies the one unique being who has every single attribute of perfection.
So when you say that name, you're invoking everything: mercy, power, sovereignty.
The entire spectrum of divine majesty, yes.
And then we get to the core of it. One. We really have to dig into the Arabic here because the word choice is so specific.
It's absolutely everything. The term used here is AHAD. And this is the crucial nuance. If the Quran had used the other word, al-Wahid, that would mean the one, in a simple numerical sense.
No, the number one, the first in a series.
Exactly. 1, 2, 3. It implies there could be a 2 or a 3. It's one of a set, like you said, one apple among other apples.
Right.
But al-Ahad, that's totally different. It means absolute singularity, uniqueness, indivisibility.
Yeah.
It means God is inherently single. He can't be divided into parts or aspects or have co-equals.
Wow.
He is the ultimate single reality, period. It completely rejects any idea of plurality in his being, his actions, or his authority.
And this is where it gets really interesting for us today, right? If God is al-Ahad, absolutely singular, what does that mean for our allegiance? It seems like it guards against a lot more than just, ancient idol worship.
It absolutely does. The word for polytheism is shirk, which means association or sharing. And sure, it means not bowing to statues, but the deeper, more subtle forms of shirk. They're about dividing your ultimate loyalty.
So can you give us an example of that, a modern one?
Well, think about the loyalty we give to systems that demand absolute authority.
Yeah.
A political ideology, a national identity, a financial market.
Right.
When one of those systems demands your total, unquestioning allegiance, promising you a kind of ultimate security or happiness that really only the divine can guarantee, that's a subtle challenge to al-Ahad.
So if you believe your entire well-being depends on, say, your party winning an election or the stock market never crashing,
you've accidentally given the attribute of absolute power and reliability to a created thing.
So the verse becomes this constant self-check, like, where is my ultimate undivided loyalty right now?
Yes. It sets that central axis. If your heart is rooted in al-Ahad, it protects you from these modern idols and builds a direct, unmediated relationship with the source.
That foundation of singularity, al-Ahad, it leads perfectly into the second verse, Allah, the Eternal Refuge. That title, Al-Ahad, it just feels like it carries the weight of the entire universe's reliance.
It might be the most profound word in the whole chapter. Al-Ahad comes from a root that means solidity, permanence, a final destination.
Okay.
And the theological definition is just brilliant because it captures two realities at the same time that, in human terms, they seem like they shouldn't go together.
And what are those two realities?
So the first is God's absolute independence. He is self-existent. He needs nothing. He never changes, no beginning, no end. He's completely free of any need.
Okay, totally self-sufficient.
And the second reality is that he is the ultimate necessary destination for every single creature's need and reliance.
Wait, so he is completely unneeded by anything, yet is completely needed by everything else.
That's it. That is the aha moment this verse gives you. I mean, we are, by our very nature, deficient. We need things. Food, shelter, validation, security.
We're all contingent.
We're all contingent. We're constantly relying on these external supports. And Al-Iman tells us that everything we rely on, our jobs, our health, our institutions, all of it is temporary. They're supports, sure, but they are not the foundation.
And I think we all know that feeling when a support system just crumbles. You know, the job loss out of nowhere, the health scare, the betrayal. Those moments show you just how flimsy those human supports really are.
Exactly. And the spiritual implications are huge. If your ultimate support is another person or a bank account, when those fail, your whole world can collapse. But internalizing Al-Iman, that gives you resilience.
Because your anchor is constant.
Because your anchor is the ever constant, the one who can't fail because he sustains himself. So in adversity, you find solace by turning to him.
But what about when things are good? In prosperity?
In prosperity, Al-Iman brings humility. If you truly get that you and everything you've achieved are dependent, you understand that your wealth, your smarts, your influence, they're just resources being funneled through you.
It shifts your mindset from ownership to stewardship.
Exactly. It removes the arrogance. So every time a believer faces a crisis, the internal compass always points one way. Turn to the Eternal Refuge. That's the practical use of the verse. It transforms that anxiety into a kind of deep serenity.
And now we move to the third verse, which is fascinating because it uses negation. It tells us what God is not. He neither begets nor is born. That double denial, lam yalad wa lam yulad, it's so precise.
Oh, it's a linguistic masterclass in defining transcendence, to be born or to give birth. I mean, what does that imply?
Yes.
Beginning, a cause, a life cycle, aging, change.
All features of created finite things.
Exactly. And by using that double negation, he doesn't produce offspring, and he was not produced. The verse just completely shuts down any possible comparison between the creator and the creation.
So this is a direct pushback against anthropomorphism, right? The idea of giving God human qualities. Why is that negation so necessary theologically?
Because if God were part of a generation, if he had a parent or a child, he'd be dependent. He'd be part of a sequence, a lineage. He'd be subject to time. This verse confirms his status as the first cause, the uncaused cause.
He stands completely outside the whole system.
Completely. He's self-sustaining. And historically, this was so important. It refuted the pre-Islamic era beliefs about angels being God's daughters, and it addresses the claims of other faiths about an incarnate deity or a divine son.
So it purifies worship.
It guarantees that worship is directed solely to the transcendent, eternal, independent source. There are no intermediaries who can claim some kind of hereditary link to the divine.
It feels like every time we try to pull God down into our human boxes, family ties, physical descriptions, time limits, this verse is like a structural barrier, a firm no.
It is. It cleanses the whole concept of God from any kind of dependency. If he has no parents and no children, then no one can ever share his sovereignty or claim special privilege through a family tie. His authority is absolute, unbroken.
And that profound transcendence brings us right to the final verse, the ultimate conclusion of Tawhid. Nor is there to him any equivalent. This feels like the final lock on the door.
It's the final intellectual and spiritual safeguard. It's the affirmation of divine incomparability. Yeah. And let's look at that word, kufu.
Kufu.
It means a perfect match, an equal peer in rank, station, and attributes. So the final declaration, kufu AHAD, is asserting that absolutely no entity in existence,
Nothing.
not an angel, not a prophet, not a force of nature, can share Allah's nature or his station. His matchlessness is absolute.
This must be what stops us from imagining him as just, a superpowered version of ourselves.
Yes. It's the intellectual shield against reducing the divine. I mean, if we try to imagine God, we inevitably use our own experience, right? Our biggest hero, our most powerful leader. Kufuwan AHAD tells us that whole exercise is useless. He is fundamentally unlike anything we can ever conceive of.
So if God is absolutely incomparable, what does that demand from us? I mean, intellectually, how do we even approach him if we can't use our own language and concepts to define him?
It forces us into a state of awe. and surrender. It means recognizing the limits of our own reason. The second you think you've successfully mapped out the divine with your finite mind, you've actually just reduced him to something manageable.
And therefore something that isn't God.
Precisely. The Quran warns us about this intellectual arrogance. It says, therefore, do not coin any similitudes for God. God knows and you do not know his majesty.
That's powerful. So the very act of trying to compare him to created things is impossible. It fosters reverence because it confirms that ultimate truth is just. It's beyond the grasp of our senses. It demands faith. So we've built the four pillars: Al-Ahad, absolute singularity;
As-Samad, absolute independence and universal reliance.
Lam Yalid wa Lam Yulad, absolute transcendence;
And Kufuwan Ahad, absolute incomparability.
and when you put them all together, these four verses become the blueprint for purifying your spiritual consciousness, which I guess is why the surah is called Al-Ikhlas, the sincerity.
And that purification isn't just an internal feeling. It dictates how you should behave ethically and how you should view the world. This framework becomes a critical lens to scrutinize everything.
Okay, so let's get concrete. How does this theology challenge us in the world we live in right now?
Well, it fundamentally challenges our modern forms of idolatry. Let's take our economic systems. If we treat capital money, GDP, the markets, as if it's Elamad.
Meaning we believe it's the ultimate self-sufficient provider of our security.
Yes. Then we've put it in the divine role. Ikhlas demands that we recognize capital is just a created support. It's transient, it can collapse. True provision comes from the Eternal Refuge.
So things like recessions or market crashes, they're not just economic failures, they're spiritual exposures. They reveal where our reliance was misplaced.
Precisely. And you can apply the same logic to political authority. If a state or a leader claims al-Ahad status demanding absolute, unwavering loyalty above all else, claiming moral infallibility, that system is challenging the very foundation of monotheism.
So Ikhlas forces the community to keep ultimate sovereignty where it belongs.
It compels you to reserve it for the Creator, which means your moral efforts have to align with justice, not just man-made laws of convenience.
So the core application is really about spiritual and ethical accountability. It's a constant question. Is my ultimate object of worship and obedience divine, or is it just a created thing pretending to be a pillar of stability?
That is the function of this surah. By stripping away every possible distraction, partnership, or intermediary, by defining God as unique, self-sufficient, uncaused, and incomparable, it frames your life as an unmediated contract of worship. It demands sincerity.
The density of meaning in just 4 lines it's just astounding. It's not just a theological statement. It really is a complete blueprint for a life lived with clarity.
It's the complete rational definition of the divine. And by giving us those absolute limits of the Creator's nature, it clearly defines the role of humanity. To be dependent servants, always seeking the ever-constant, and recognizing the limitations of everything else.
That was a phenomenal deep dive. So we've seen how divine singularity, Al-Ahad, demands our undiluted loyalty. Now, just to leave you with one final thought, take that final piece, divine incomparability, Kufuwan Ahad. If you really sit with that, the idea that nothing is like him, how does that knowledge force you to step back and reassess the ultimate truths you think you've already grasped about the world or even about yourself? What intellectual assumptions do you have to let go of to truly embrace his matchlessness? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope this knowledge helps guide your reflection.